Okay, so have you ever, like, dreamed about getting that traditional publishing deal? You know the one. Signing your name on the dotted line. Holding that book with your name on it. It feels big, doesn't it?
It's definitely a dream for a lot of writers.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving deep into today. We're going to be unpacking some insights from Tim Grail.
Oh, yeah, Tim Grail.
He's a book marketing expert who's worked with like tons of successful authors.
He really knows his stuff.
He does. And we've got 2 of his videos that we're going to be looking at today.
I think people are going to be really surprised by some of this stuff.
It is seriously eye-opening. Like, I was taking notes left and right.
Right.
Because he really pulls back the curtain on the publishing industry.
He doesn't hold back. The good, the bad, and the perfect. Well, let's just say interesting.
Interesting is a good word for it.
He even talks about, like, what publishers spend on Kim Kardashian selfies.
Seriously, publishers are putting out books of selfies now.
Yeah, he talks about being in a bookstore and seeing this massive display for a hardback book of Kim K's selfies. And it wasn't some small publisher either. Like, this was one of the big players in the industry.
Whoa, okay. That's kind of mind-blowing. I guess it makes sense in a way, though, right?
Totally.
Publishers are businesses.
Yeah.
And they want to make money.
Exactly. And a book of Kim Kardashian selfies is practically guaranteed to sell.
Sure.
And this actually highlights like a key point that Grail makes throughout these videos. Publishers are often more interested in an author's platform than their writing ability.
So you're saying that having a big following is more important than, like, writing a great book?
I wouldn't say more important, but it's definitely a huge factor. It's like, think about it this way. Publishers are taking a gamble when they sign an author.
Right.
They're investing time and money and resources into that book.
A lot of resources.
And if an author already has a built-in audience, it significantly reduces their risk.
So basically what you're saying is, if you're just starting out
Yeah.
and you don't have a huge following, it's going to be tough to land a traditional publishing deal.
It can be, yeah. He even mentions, like, this editor at a conference who literally scouts speakers with the biggest crowds, trying to sign them on the spot.
Whoa.
It's all about guaranteed sales.
So basically, if you're not like a celebrity or an influencer, you're out of luck.
Not at all. But it does mean you need to be strategic about building your platform.
Yeah.
And honestly, building a platform is important regardless of which publishing path you choose.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What does it actually mean to build a platform?
So in the context of book publishing, it means cultivating an audience of engaged readers who are interested in your work.
Okay.
It could be through social media, a blog, email list, whatever channels resonate with you and your target audience.
So it's not just about having like a lot of followers. It's about having followers who are actually interested in what you have to say.
Exactly. It's about building a community of people who connect with your voice, your ideas, your story.
Okay, that makes sense. But I think a lot of writers, myself included, we get so caught up in that dream of landing that big publishing deal that we forget about, like, the deeper reasons why we write in the first place.
That's a great point, and it's something that Grail addresses directly in these videos. He talks about how the only writers he's seen be truly happy over the long term are the ones who are doing it for the craft itself, not for external validation.
Yeah, he has that great quote. He says, "The only writers I've seen be happy over a long period of time are the ones doing it for the craft, not chasing external validation."
It's so true.
Such a powerful reminder to stay focused on the why.
Absolutely, because, let's be real, that initial rush of excitement you get from getting a book deal, it fades pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And if you're not genuinely passionate about your work, it's going to be a long, hard road.
For sure. Okay, so we've talked about the allure of traditional publishing and the importance of platform. But let's get down to, like, brass tacks.
Yeah.
How do writers actually make money with books?
That's the question everyone wants to know. So in traditional publishing, you typically receive an advance,
Right.
which is a sum of money paid to you up front.
Right. But I've heard that advances for first-time authors are usually pretty small.
That's often the case, yeah. The average advance for a debut novelist can be anywhere from like $5,000 to $10,000, and that's before your agent takes their cut.
Right.
And remember, the advance is an advance against royalties, so you won't see any further income until your book earns back that initial amount.
So even if you land a deal, it's not like you're suddenly rolling in dough.
Not usually, no. And Grail points out another important factor here. Only about 35% of traditionally published books actually earn back their advance and start generating royalties.
Wow, that's a pretty sobering statistic.
It is, and it really underscores why publishers are so risk-averse.
Yeah.
They need to be confident that a book will sell enough copies. to justify their investment.
Okay, so let's say you do earn back your advance. What's like the typical royalty rate for a traditionally published author?
It can vary, but it's usually around 10% of the cover price for hardcovers and 7.5% for paperbacks.
Okay.
Grell gives a helpful example in one of his videos. Let's say your book sells for $25. If you have a 10% royalty rate, you'll earn $2.50 per book.
Okay.
But then you have to factor in things like printing costs, marketing expenses, and your agent's commission.
Oh, right.
He estimates that after all those deductions, you might end up with around $7 profit per book.
$7 a book. That doesn't seem like much.
It's not a lot, especially when you consider all the time and effort that goes into writing a book.
Right.
But the key, as Grell emphasizes, is to think long-term.
Okay.
The real money in traditional publishing comes from building a backlist,
A backlist.
a collection of multiple books that generate passive income over time.
Okay, so you're talking about
Yeah.
like multiple books?
Multiple books, yeah.
Yeah.
He actually talks about one of his own books
Oh, yeah.
that he published back in 2013 that still brings in like $700 to $1,200 every single month.
Yeah.
Now imagine if you had several books doing that.
That's amazing.
That's where the real earning potential lies.
Okay, so building a backlist is crucial for long-term success. But what about authors who aren't interested in traditional publishing? What are their options?
Well, there are other paths available, like self-publishing
Mm-hmm.
and hybrid publishing.
Okay, and we haven't really talked about hybrid publishing yet. What's the difference between that and traditional publishing?
It's kind of like a blend of the two. With hybrid publishing, you're essentially partnering with a company
Yep.
that offers a lot of the services that a traditional publisher would.
Okay.
Things like editing, cover design, formatting, even some marketing assistance.
So it's kind of like you have like a publishing team,
Mm-hmm.
but without the whole traditional publishing contract.
Exactly. You maintain more control over your book, and you receive a larger share of the royalties.
Okay.
So it can be a pretty appealing option
Hmm.
for authors who want more creative freedom and a bigger slice of the pie.
That makes sense. But I imagine there are some trade-offs.
Of course. The
Yeah.
biggest difference is the financial aspect. With hybrid publishing, you typically invest in those publishing services yourself, rather than having the publisher cover the costs.
So more control and potentially higher royalties,
No.
but also more upfront investment
Mm,
and responsibility.
precisely. You're essentially acting as your own mini publisher.
Oh, wow.
So you need to be prepared to shoulder more of the financial risk
Yeah.
and marketing efforts.
Okay. That's a lot to think about. So I'm starting to see how each path has like its own unique set of advantages and disadvantages.
Mm.
It's not as simple as saying like one is better than the other.
Definitely not. And that's a crucial takeaway from all of this. There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
The best publishing route really depends on your individual goals, resources, and
Mhm.
risk tolerance.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's imagine for a second that I'm an author
Mm.
with a finished manuscript,
Mm.
but no existing platform to speak of.
Yeah.
What factors should I be weighing as I consider these different paths?
Okay, so in that case, traditional publishing might be the most challenging route. Remember, publishers are looking for authors who can guarantee sales. And without a platform, it's just harder to demonstrate that potential.
So would you say
Yeah.
that indie or hybrid publishing
Yeah.
might be more appealing options in that case?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Indie publishing offers complete control and the highest potential royalties.
Okay.
But it also requires the most upfront investment and effort. In terms of marketing and production,
Yeah, that makes sense.
you'd need to be comfortable with handling everything yourself, from editing and cover design to
Right.
distribution and promotion.
So what about hybrid publishing? How does that fit into the equation?
Hybrid publishing could offer a good middle ground.
Okay.
You get some support and expertise from the publishing company,
Okay.
but you retain more control and a greater share of the profits compared to traditional publishing.
So it's like the best of both worlds.
In a way, yeah, it can be a really good option for authors who want some guidance and professional services, but aren't quite ready to go fully independent.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get it. But it is a lot to wrap your head around.
It is a lot.
There's so many options
Yeah.
and factors to consider.
It can definitely feel overwhelming. But, I think the best thing to do is to really focus on your individual goals.
Okay.
What are you hoping to achieve with your writing?
Right.
What are your strengths and weaknesses? Are you comfortable with taking on financial risk? How much time and energy are you willing to invest in marketing your book?
Those are really good questions.
Mm.
I think I need to sit down and really think about that. Because, yeah, there's no one right answer.
Yep.
It's about finding the path
Yeah.
that best aligns with, like, my personal circumstances and ambitions.
Exactly. And, it's also important to remember that the publishing landscape is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
What works today might be different tomorrow.
That's a good point.
So staying informed and adaptable is key.
Okay, so speaking of adapting,
Yeah.
something you mentioned earlier really got me thinking.
Yeah.
That whole Kim Kardashian selfie book situation is like, the traditional rules of publishing are changing.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really powerful illustration of how the dynamics of the publishing world are shifting.
Kind of wow.
The rise of self-publishing and digital platforms. And they've given authors so much more power and opportunities.
Almost like authors can bypass the traditional gatekeepers now.
In many ways, yes.
And connect directly with their readers.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It is. They can build their own audiences,
Yeah.
control their own narratives, and even reach a global market without relying on a traditional publisher.
That's amazing. But hasn't traditional publishing always been about connecting authors with readers? Like, what's changed?
I think the key difference is the level of control and direct access.
Okay.
In the past, authors relied heavily on publishers to handle everything.
Right.
From editing and marketing to distribution and publicity now.
Yeah.
Authors have the tools and platforms to manage many of those aspects themselves.
So the power dynamic has shifted.
It's definitely more balanced than it used to be. Authors have more options.
Yeah.
And more autonomy than ever before. But don't get me wrong, traditional publishers still hold considerable influence and expertise.
Right.
And landing a deal with a major publishing house still carries a lot of weight and prestige.
Okay, so what does all this mean? For someone listening who's dreaming of that big publishing deal, is traditional publishing even worth pursuing anymore?
That's a great question. And I think it depends on your definition of work it.
Okay.
You're looking for validation, prestige, and access to a wide distribution network. Traditional publishing can still offer those benefits, but you need to go in with realistic expectations.
Okay.
It's a highly competitive industry.
Right.
And even if you do land a deal, success is not guaranteed.
True.
And you'll need to be prepared to share a significant portion of your royalties.
Right.
And potentially relinquish some creative control.
So what's the key takeaway here?
I think the key takeaway is that building a platform is no longer optional.
Okay.
It's essential for success in any publishing path. Whether you're aiming for traditional publishing, going indie, or choosing the hybrid route.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does having a platform actually help you get a traditional publishing deal?
I think of it as leverage.
Okay.
When you approach an agent or publisher with a sizable and engaged audience, you're demonstrating your marketability.
Oh, ouch.
You're showing them that you already have readers who are invested in your work, which makes you a less risky investment.
So it's not just about the number of followers you have. It's about like the quality of your audience.
Yeah.
And their engagement with your content.
Exactly. It's about building a community of passionate readers who connect with your voice and are eager to read more of your work.
Okay.
And that kind of platform takes time and effort to cultivate.
Yeah, for sure. So for those of us who are still in the early stages of building our platform, what's the best way to approach traditional publishing?
One strategy is to focus on building your platform while simultaneously working on your manuscript.
Okay.
Don't wait until your book is finished to start connecting with readers.
That's a great tip.
Start building that audience now. Lay the groundwork for your book's success, even before it's written.
Well,
by the time you're ready to query agents or publishers, you'll have a ready-made audience who's already invested in your work.
That's awesome. Okay. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the ins and outs of traditional publishing, the rise of hybrid publishing.
Yeah.
And
the crucial role of platform in today's publishing landscape.
And I think most importantly, we've highlighted that there's no single path to publishing success.
Right.
It's about finding the path. That aligns best with your individual goals, resources, and values.
Well said. Now I have a final thought for our listeners, something to really ponder as they navigate their own publishing journeys.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine, like if J.R.R. Tolkien were writing The Hobbit today, how do you think he would have navigated this whole new world of publishing?
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I mean, Tolkien's success was largely driven by word of mouth and critical acclaim.
Right. But if he were writing today, he would probably be leveraging all sorts of digital tools to build a community around his work.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like maybe he would have been a book talk sensation.
Yeah.
sharing snippets of elvish poetry.
He could have had a YouTube channel breaking down like the intricacies of Middle-earth's geography.
Yeah, gosh, that would be so cool.
Right.
He could have even created a whole online course
Mm.
teaching aspiring fantasy writers how to craft their own intricate worlds.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this new era of publishing. It really empowers authors to connect with readers in ways that weren't possible before.
Totally. And it's like authors aren't just names on a book cover anymore.
Right.
They can be.
Yeah.
Like active participants in the conversation
Exactly.
surrounding their work.
Yeah.
And they can build relationships with readers long before their book even hits the shelves.
It's true. It's like the author's role has expanded beyond just the writing itself.
For sure.
They're marketers, content creators, community managers,
Yeah.
all rolled into one.
That's a
It is. But it also presents incredible opportunities.
right.
Authors can build a loyal following, generate buzz for their books, and even shape the narrative around their work.
That's so cool. It really seems like the playing field has been leveled. You don't need a big publishing house to reach a wide audience anymore.
I would say it's completely level. I mean,
Right.
traditional publishers, they still hold a lot of power and influence,
Yeah.
and having their support can still be a huge advantage.
Right.
But there's no doubt that the barriers to entry have been lowered.
Yeah.
Authors have more control and more options than ever before.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the most important piece of advice you would give to aspiring authors, regardless of which publishing path they choose?
You know, I would say focus on your why.
Your why?
Yeah. Remember why you started writing in the first place.
Okay.
Is it for the love of storytelling, the desire to connect with readers, the need to express your unique perspective? Like, hold on to that passion, that driving force, and let it guide you through all the ups and downs of the publishing journey.
That's such a valuable reminder.
It is.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about landing a deal or selling a certain number of books.
Right.
It's about creating work that matters, work that resonates with readers and leaves a lasting impact.
Beautifully said. And if you can stay connected to that deeper purpose, the rest will fall into place.
I love that.
Build your platform, hone your craft, and keep writing those stories that are burning to be told.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've covered the realities of traditional publishing, explored alternative paths, and most importantly, we've reminded ourselves that the heart of it all is that passion for storytelling.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you. And to all the aspiring authors out there, keep writing, keep creating, and never give up on your dreams.
Until next time, happy writing.